My name is Alex, and I'm 28 years old. If someone had asked me just a month back, I would have described my family as, at best, slightly off balance. You know, the typical subtle digs during holiday dinners, nothing too extreme. My mother clearly favoring my younger sister, Emily, and my father remaining completely oblivious to pretty much everything around him. Irritating? Definitely. Intolerable? Not quite. But then came Emily's wedding and everything changed. I suddenly understood that my family didn't simply play favorites, they had crowned one undeniable star. And to be clear, that star was never me. Some context first. Emily is 25, and calling her the spoiled princess of the household would still be putting it mildly. This is the same girl who, at 16, threw a full-blown fit because our parents bought me a second-hand car for my birthday, and she demanded a brand new one when her turn came. And of course, she received it. She's always been the golden child, the one who could never do wrong, even when she clearly did. As for me, I was the responsible older sibling expected to lead by example, which really just meant achieving everything perfectly while receiving zero recognition. If I brought home a report card with mostly A's and a couple of B's, my mom would sigh disapprovingly and say, "Alex, I know you can do better." Meanwhile, if Emily barely scraped by with a low C, it was cause for celebration complete with congratulations and dessert. Anyway, heading into Emily's big day, I knew I wouldn't be the center of attention. Obviously. It was her wedding, and I was perfectly fine playing the role of supportive brother, smiling in photos, and getting through the event without extra conflict. What I never saw coming, what no one could have predicted, was just how deliberately they would make sure I understood my exact place in this family. The red flags appeared early. First, I learned I wasn't part of the wedding party. Okay, fair enough. Not every bride or groom includes their siblings in the bridal party. Then I discovered that Emily's longtime best friend, a colleague from work, and even her fiancé's cousin's girlfriend had all made the cut. That hurt a bit more, but I told myself maybe she just wanted a different vibe. Next came the seating arrangement. I didn't expect to be at the head table, of course. That spot is reserved for the couple and their attendants. But I assumed I'd at least sit with our relatives, the people I've shared blood and countless family gatherings with my whole life. Wrong. When I arrived at the venue and looked for my place card, something felt off. My name wasn't listed with my parents, aunts, uncles, or cousins. In fact, my card wasn't on the main chart at all. I had to ask a coordinator for help. She scanned the list, then offered the most uncomfortable smile I'd ever witnessed. "Oh, Alex, you're, over here," she pointed. I followed her gesture and felt my stomach drop. My assigned seat wasn't inside the elegant ballroom with its glittering lights and beautifully set tables. It was outside the main room, literally in the hallway next to the coat check. At first, I actually chuckled, convinced it had to be an error. Maybe they ran short on space and had to improvise. But no, this was intentional. A small, solitary table tucked near the entrance, surrounded by hanging jackets and that faint, musty scent of stored winter wear. I turned back to the coordinator, still half smiling in disbelief. "This is a joke, right?" She looked genuinely pained. "I'm so sorry, but this is where you've been placed." Like an unwanted guest being directed to the overflow area. I wasn't angry yet, just utterly baffled. Was this some strange custom I didn't know about? I needed clarification, so I went straight to the source. I found Emily near the bride's room, glowing in her dress and surrounded by her friends and our mom, who was busy admiring every detail. Emily spotted me approaching and flashed an overly bright, insincere grin. "Hey, you came." I held up my place card. "Yeah, quick question, why am I seated outside the actual reception area?" She blinked, then let out a light laugh. "Oh, we had to rearrange a few things at the last minute." And I was the one who got bumped to the hallway?" Emily shrugged as if it were nothing. "Well, yeah, we needed to make room for the closest family at the better tables." I stared. "I am close family." That's when Mom, who had been pretending to ignore us, jumped in with her overly sweet tone. "Now, Alex, please don't cause a problem. Today is all about Emily." "I'm not causing anything. I'm asking why I'm being treated like an outsider at my own sister's wedding." And then Emily delivered the line that turned the entire day into a nightmare. "Well, technically, you're not really core family anymore." I stood there, trying to process her words. "What is that supposed to mean?" She adjusted her veil casually as if the topic bored her. "You moved out ages ago. You hardly visit, and you're still single. Things change." The weight that settled in my chest wasn't simple anger. It was deeper, colder. I wasn't considered immediate family because I'd built an independent life. because I wasn't married. Before I could respond, another voice joined the conversation. Emily's new mother-in-law appeared. I hadn't spoken much with her before, but I instantly recognized the type, someone who fed on conflict and loved creating chaos. She glanced at me with a knowing smirk. "So you're Alex, I was curious whose name was on that hallway table." I forced a polite nod. "Yes, that's me, the sibling who apparently doesn't qualify anymore." She chuckled with fake pity, looking me up and down. "Weddings are like that, only the truly important guests get prime seating." In that moment it all connected. This wasn't an accident or poor organization. It was deliberate. And once I realized that, something inside me snapped. I wasn't going to suffer through this in silence. If they wanted a show, they'd get one. I took a steady breath, gripping my place card tighter. Fine. If this was the game, I'd play and win. They'd forgotten something crucial. I'd grown up with Emily. I knew her hidden opinions, the comments she made in private, and most importantly, I knew how much she actually disliked her new mother-in-law. She'd put on a perfect act in public, but in confidence, completely different story. And now I had the perfect audience. I turned to the mother-in-law with my own exaggerated, sympathetic look. "You know, it's interesting. Emily was so stressed about seating just recently." Emily, who had been examining her manicure, suddenly tensed. The mother-in-law raised an eyebrow. "Really?" I nodded casually. "Yes, she kept worrying about certain people being too visible, didn't want anyone spoiling the photos with." I paused, then turned to Emily. "What was the phrase again?" "Something about poor fashion choices?" Silence dropped over the group. The mother-in-law's smirk vanished. "What did you just say?" Emily's face went pale. "Alex, stop," but I continued smoothly. "Oh, and she was anxious about speeches too. Said if a particular person spoke, it would ruin everything. Called it embarrassing, attention-seeking." The mother-in-law's eyes narrowed dangerously. Emily made a panicked sound and grabbed my sleeve. "Can we talk privately?" I stepped back, feigning innocence. "Why, I thought this was family time." Since I'm apparently not core family, I figured I'd contribute somehow. The mother-in-law turned sharply to Emily. "Did you really say those things?" Emily forced a shaky laugh. "No, absolutely not. Alex is just twisting." "Oh, and the bachelorette trip," I added, snapping my fingers as if I'd just remembered. "Emily spent a good portion venting about you, said she was only being polite until the wedding was over and she wouldn't have to pretend anymore." That was the breaking point. The mother-in-law's jaw dropped. My mother looked mortified. My father, finally noticing the scene, edged away as if hoping to vanish. Emily's bridesmaids began exchanging shocked glances and whispers. Emily appeared ready to combust. And then the mother-in-law exploded. "You spoiled, ungrateful child." I had to fight back a smile. This was escalating perfectly. "You think you can play nice to my face while bad-mouthing me? After all the money I poured into this event, all the help I gave." She waved toward the ballroom dramatically. Emily stammered denials. The mother-in-law whirled on my parents. "And you let her behave this way? You raised her to be two-faced?" Mom gasped. "We would never," I cut in calmly. "Actually, you did. You taught her the world revolves around her, so naturally she'd treat others poorly." Mom glared. "Alex, enough." "Why?" I asked, arms crossed. "Because I'm finally speaking up. That only becomes a problem when it's not Emily getting her way." By now, guests were openly watching. The murmurs grew louder. Even the groom arrived, looking confused. "What's happening?" The mother-in-law turned on him next. "What's happening is your new wife has been insulting me for months, calling my style tacky, dreading my speech, saying she was just enduring me." The groom stared at Emily. "Is this true?" Emily shook her head wildly. "No, well, not exactly," the mother-in-law scoffed. "Not exactly, spare me." The argument exploded from there. Voices overlapped, accusations flew. Mom tried futilely to mediate. Dad looked miserable. The groom stood frozen, clearly questioning his choices. And I watched it all unfold, sipping champagne, thoroughly entertained. Emily's voice rose to a shriek as she faced her husband. "You're going to take her side over mine?" He rubbed his temples. "Emily, did you say those things or not?" she huffed. "It was misunderstood," I raised a brow. "Misunderstood, classic, give it up, you got exposed." Mom tried again. "We don't approve of," I waved her off. "Save it. You knew how she felt and encouraged the fake niceness anyway, all about appearances, right?" Emily screamed. "You're destroying my wedding." I glanced around theatrically. "Me. I'm not the one who banished family to the hallway or trash-talked the in-laws." Then, deciding it was time to exit, I sighed dramatically. "Well, this has been memorable, but I think I'll head out." Emily threw up her hands. "Fine, leave," I smiled. "Gladly." I walked to the gift table, spotted my carefully chosen present, and picked it up. Emily's eyes widened. "You're seriously taking that back?" I looked at her evenly. "Why leave it? You said I'm not real family, wouldn't want to impose." Her face flushed crimson. "You're acting like a child." "Maybe," I replied, tucking the box under my arm. "But at least I'm honest. Good luck with everything." I turned to the mother-in-law. "You'll need it." She actually laughed bitterly as Emily shrieked again. I headed for the door amid stunned silence and rising whispers. Music had stopped, the joyful mood was gone. At the exit, I paused for one last look. Chaos everywhere, Emily arguing, parents panicking, groom shell-shocked. I waved lightly. "Have a wonderful day, sis." Then I left. I drove home without glancing back, replaying the glorious mess in my mind, gift safely beside me. Petty, perhaps cathartic, completely. My phone blew up the next day, calls, texts, voicemails from everyone suddenly remembering me. Mom alternated between rage and pleading, demanding apologies, begging for talks, accusing me of ruining everything. Emily's messages were pure fury, declaring our relationship dead, blaming me for wrecked photos, incredulous about the gift. Dad's were different, short, calm, "Call when you can." I did. He answered quickly, sighed, and asked why I'd done it. "They started it," I said. He chuckled wearily. "Yeah, they kind of did." He admitted it wasn't right how they'd treated me. And he revealed the aftermath. The mother-in-law had unleashed publicly after I left. Emily's denials failed. The groom was devastated learning the truth on their wedding day. Massive